So currently, there are 825 neighborhoods that our government designates as area of concentrated poverty that are home to over 40 million Americans. And Bonton was one of them. When I moved there, it was a war zone. Median household income was around $19,000. I believe 39% of our population lived below the poverty line. Almost 40% of our young men would go to prison before their 25th birthday. It was a place where people suffer and die, and I thought we could help. But I was clearly an outsider, and I did not know how to help. But the community taught me so much, and that's when everything else started to unfold.
So what is it like today?
Well, it's a burgeoning community filled with hope. Median household income has grown 106%. Our graduation rate has grown to 76.7%. And property crime, violent crime, and murder rate have dropped 61%.
How is that possible?
Well, we discovered 7 human essentials that people need to thrive. These human essentials are the foundation for any healthy neighborhood, but they don't exist in areas of concentrated poverty. So we thought, instead of creating programs that just mitigate the problem, why don't we create an innovative solution that removes the barrier and the community transformed from the inside out? If we really want to help empower people, we've got to think differently. We have to stop trying to make poverty easier to endure and think about how to end it altogether.
This is Stand Together Presents, stories, ideas, and advice from changemakers tackling our biggest challenges.
Okay, so the first thing you need to know is, since the 1960s, we've spent over $30 trillion on poverty alleviation.
There is help, and you can receive help right now.
And yet the number of these neighborhoods have tripled over that same period of time. So why has this happened? When I moved to Bonton, I got to know and really understand the people that lived there. There were 7 things that showed up over and over again. They would all have these same 7 barriers. And so we call them human essentials. And these are education, economic development, access to fair credit, access to fresh, affordable food, health and well-being, safe, affordable housing, and transportation. We know intrinsically that these things are the important things for a healthy community. For example, at Bonton, we built a farm, which started by providing both affordable food and jobs. And that laid the foundation for the other human essentials to grow. And when you do that, you create the conditions for flourishing, and then people will leverage those conditions to build flourishing lives. And so if you're endeavoring this work
and want to make real lasting change,
it's very important that all of these institutions or services work together in unison as an ecosystem. They're like a house of cards, so that if one of those cards gets pulled and missing, the other fall down around them.
think about it this way.
If I were to plant a seed, it requires 6 things to grow into a plant and produce fruit. Any one of those 6 things that's missing, no plant, no fruit. If I take the sun away, no fruit. If I take the water away, no fruit. Human beings are the same way. No education, no job.
No job, no house.
And if we just understood that, then it's all of those things are codependent on each other.
And they need to be all working towards the same goal of human flourishing. But that's not the norm right now.
In the social sector, most of us are akin to ambulance drivers at the bottom of a cliff, waiting for people to fall off, only to rush them to triage to see if they might be able to be put back together again.
For example,
If you're the executive director of a homeless shelter,
traditionally,
your North Star is to see that people that are sleeping out on the streets have a bed and a place to sleep with a roof over their head every night. Or if you are an executive director of the food bank, it's to see that food insecure people have a meal every night. But those programs just put Band-Aids on the symptoms of the problem. And while that is valuable, we need a portion of the social sector to become foundation and fence builders. Our expectation should be transformation.
not just a bed or a meal, but
To see those peoples to flourish and live into the fullness of who they are created to be.
and so if you work in the social sector, you can't just provide one of these services well. You need all 7 working towards a common goal. Therefore,
You need to find a way to partner with people that can build healthy institutions for each of the 7 human essentials.
and that work,
Has to bubble up from the community, because the people closest to the problem are the ones that are best positioned to know what the answers are. So it requires this deep collaboration for it to work.
And that's where relationships come in.
The relationships are what informs you of the work that needs to be done. The bottom-up principle is one of the foundational parts of what makes this so successful. Because when you try to do things to and for people, instead of in response to the relationship
and what they've articulated they need,
it doesn't work. And so you have to build really deep relationships with people that are leaders in the community.
because they are ultimately the ones that lead the way.
And in Bonton, it just so happened that the leaders were pastors, matriarchs, and OGs.
And once we built those partnerships,
Our work went from 6 people meeting in a house to thousands of people working together.
all united towards a common North Star, which is to
Empower people to overcome barriers and live fulfilling, purpose-filled lives.
And then what happens is
You start to build a network where we're in this together, and then all of the work and the reason it sustains is because it was built by the community. It's the only way that it works. And so we thought that if we were successful in creating the conditions for flourishing in Bonton, that we would prove to the world that the outcomes in our community would normalize. And so we've proven it. Poverty rate has declined significantly, life expectancy improved 1.6 years.
and average home value increased 128%.
What's the potential?
I'm a dreamer, so when we think of what the potential of this is, I think really big.
And so through Radius,
Which is a principled approach, we are taking it across the country and applying these same
strategies with hundreds of local organizations and leaders, and then we can empower
millions of Americans that have been perpetually left out of the American dream. Believing that if there's enough expressions of this, not just one, but if there's enough examples of this methodology working, that this will become normalized and this will disrupt the status quo in a way that this becomes the prevailing approach across our country.
Cool.
That was fun.
That's everybody's favorite.
Stand Together partners with changemakers tackling our biggest challenges. To see more stories, follow our channels. And to learn more about how you can partner with us, go to standtogether.org.